Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad in the house.
Yo.
Welcome back, Sherb.
It's good to be back.
How was your vacation?
It's good. Spent a lot of time sitting on the dock, getting sunburnt. Got that Hulk Hogan skin, so I'm nice and orange.
Yeah. Like listen to the Hogan on Rogan.
Hogan on Rogan?
Yeah.
Is that a sandwich?
Yeah.
I eat that.
I'll take a couple Hogans.
Come on, kid.
Get that the Wyndham Shaws.
Nothing wrong with that, bro. Shop and save. Bud's Shop and Save up in Dexter.
I fucking love Shop and Save. R.I.P. Shop and Save.
They still exist. You just got to go, like an hour and a half north.
No, there's one in Gray. There's one right near me.
Is there? Oh, that's
right.
So. One on Route 100. There's a Shop and Save, but there's a bunch of them up north.
It hits in the same way. The tiles, the floor tiles are still the same. The lights don't work the best.
It's like a bathroom tile.
They're not LEDs.
The lights don't work.
Yeah. Like the old gym. Like half.
Some of the meat's gray. It is what it is.
Aged. I think that's.
Aged,
I think
yes.
you pay more for that at Whole Foods.
Yeah, dry aged. Well, I think that's a pretty good segue to our guest today. And all the way back to Sherb saying that he actually took some time to relax.
Yeah,
that was my segue. We have a special guest today. Kelly is joining us for an interview style podcast. Before we get to that, though, I have to just say happy football season.
Fucking A, Sunday or Thursday, right? Thursday night. Let's go. Hunter, are you excited?
Stoked.
Get your TiVo recording it?
Yeah.
I broke my fantasy rules and drafted a rookie running back, and he plays on Thursday, so I'm very excited. Jameer Gibbs.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So just throwing some positive vibes out, even though this will already have played, and people will be like, "Oh, he had 2 touchdowns, or he broke his leg, and your fantasy season's over."
Suck it.
Yeah, and just a shout out to Catherine Lewis. I have my Steelers friendship bracelets on right now. We have Steel Curtain. I heart Steelers in Steel City.
You know what? I saw it too, and I was like, when's the opportune time to say something sarcastic and rude about those?
No. This is a shout out to Clue. You can talk your shit afterwards.
Nice. It's obviously it was a nice gift. I'll shut up.
Without further ado, our interview with Kelly. Kelly, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Just hanging.
Good Labor Day weekend. It's been almost a week since we've talked.
Question or statement?
That was a question.
Oh.
Not for you.
Next question.
Did you do anything cool?
We did. We went out to sand dunes for our anniversary. It's like there's sand dunes like 30 minutes south of us. So you like climb up this giant sand dune hill, and then you get to stare out at the Monterey Bay and watch the sunset.
How close are you guys to like the Oregon coast? Is it like 5 hours away or like not that far? That's what I have pictured in my head. Is that like kind of?
It's at least, I'd say 5+.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the like picture I have in my head. Ted, Jen, Cody, and I drove from one year. We were at the Del Mar Regional, and then had to be the following week up in, was it Portland, Oregon? So we're like, we're not going to fly to Maine and then fly to Portland. And we always wanted to do the road trip from like all the way up through there. And then of course, Big Sur was, had like something catastrophic and we weren't able to go. We had to go drive around.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there was a detour. So it was like half the reason we wanted to do it.
That's so sad.
There was like landslides that year.
That's right.
Route 1 was closed.
Yes.
People got trapped.
Yeah.
We had to take like a parallel route or whatever.
Unreal.
Yeah, there was a year that was really bad. Oh, that's so sad. Big Sur is incredible.
Anyways, very roundabout way to say, in my head, the sand dunes, I picture, because like Oregon, that area like with the like crazy rocks like from the Goonies, had all of those wild sand dunes like up behind. There's like the cliffs and everything, and that's what popped into my head. Anyways, good story, Drew. Nice job. So moving on, I figured we could start with you catching us, I guess Sherb and I'm sure Hunter knows what's going on, and the listeners up just in terms of this summer and into the fall. What's life been like? What's training been like? Do you have your sights set on anything? Have you like Are you working your way into phase one? Like where are you at right now?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm in kind of a big transition phase right now. And I took a pretty good chunk of time off at the end of the season and was like really slow coming back into fitness. And now, yeah, working my way back into phase one, but there are some boundaries on my training time and trying to shift priorities a little bit from 100% athlete to prioritizing my career and my family, and then fitness third. And shifting those priorities has been challenging in some really unexpected ways. So it's taking me a little longer than I expected to like find a new rhythm and figure out what the new balance is going to look like. So I've been just kind of like working my way through putting pieces together and fitting all that in a way that aligns with a new set of priorities. And yeah, so that's where I'm at, I guess.
What was the reason for the change, Kelly? What brought about this this decision to potentially switch things up a bit?
Well, Lance and I are thinking about starting a family soon.
Oh, hey, congrats.
And so, thank you. Yeah. Like maybe in the next, not like right away, but we're starting to like shift our priorities in expectation of that, trying to like get ourselves set up to be prepared for that. And so, yeah, we're both, trying to find some stability in our careers and, yeah, I guess, and prioritize more family time, making sure that, life doesn't all revolve around training and CrossFit. And, if and when we have a kid, priorities will totally shift. And so, yeah, I guess we're just trying to shift things around in preparation for that. And
would you say that
looks like for all of us?
A decent amount of this has to do with identity? I just know that you had a pretty strong and, serious sports career prior to CrossFit. So like, there's just maybe a lot of it is, sort of tied into how much of your personal identity is based on being an athlete and training and all that.
Surprisingly, no. That wasn't, that's what I expected the hard part to be. And I've been through that identity crisis before. So I was very aware that I didn't want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And so like, I knew this was coming at the end of this season. And I did a lot of work around preparing myself for what the shift was going to look like in terms of my identity and what I was going to have waiting for me on the other side of it. Things that I was excited about, things that I'd been putting on the back burner while I focused on my competition career. And so I was really actually excited to like get started with those things. And I didn't feel like everyone I'd talked to and everything I'd researched, kind of prepared me for that identity crisis. And I had things that I, could fill that space with. The hardest part is honestly, I went big picture with my preparations, but I didn't expect all of the little granular things to be so difficult. Like just the things that all the little like daily habits and habits. Spent so many years really dialing in my daily routines and processes to the point where like most of it's autopilot. I don't even think about it. And my day is so tightly structured around performance that I just realized there's 1,000 habits that I now have to change all at once. And like all of those little things of just figuring out, okay, what are the little habits? There were things that I didn't even kind of consciously realize that I was doing. That I have to like literally go back through and like make lists of like, okay, these are the new priorities. Now, how do I like, what are all the little habits that I have to build in to align my daily actions with those new priorities? Rather than just like, okay, I've put I thought it was going to be as simple as like, okay, I'm going to put some boundaries on my training time. And then, the rest of my time I'm going to fill with new things. But I have to like really go through and figure out, okay, what are those new things? And then the mental habits of like, I don't know, there's like autopilot mental emotional reactions to things that, like I go through a workout piece and, or like I finish a training session and there's like an autopilot, like, you didn't do enough today. You're going to get behind. People are going to get fitter than you. And I have to like check myself mentally and be like, yes, they are, because this is the new priority. And,
you might also surprise yourself, like by the way. That's one, with your training age, with your experience. I've worked with actually a couple of people in the past that have gone through this, and they sort of apply the old rules to new goals and have a really tough time getting outside of that. So much of what I'm sure, you and Hunter are going to work on together, but you can get a lot out of a little. And the amount of recovery that you get in comparison to before, you might end up in a situation where you're like, whoa, like how am I this fit or this strong or this skilled? And it's like, I mean, you have your 10,000 hours in, so you know what to do when you go into the gym and how to execute and how to get a stimulus. And your body is probably like, thank you so much for, maybe the extra sleep, or maybe it's not extra, but it's more restful because your body's not beat up or whatever it is. So, I'm saying careful. It's a good thing, but you might surprise yourself with what comes of this. I don't think it's that realistic for a younger athlete to do that because they don't have those 10,000 hours and they don't know how to go in and like typically, when maybe in your early 20s or something, you're just racing all the time. And we know now that that's probably not the best idea. So, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what you can get out of those sorts of things.
I feel like your members.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sorry, sorry, Kelly. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I hope so. I've talked to Hunter a little bit about that. I still want to throw my hat in the ring. I don't want to give up competition completely. I don't think I can take that out of myself. That's just it. I mean, it is kind of a part of who I am, and it's still what I love to do. So, I would love to stay as competitive as I can, around these new priorities. And so I'm kind of hoping that it works out that way, that, my body's kind of grateful for the extra recovery time. And
well, the new battle won't be against what your current capacity is or what your standing is. The new battle is convincing yourself that you didn't need to do more. Like going into something and having that being in that headspace, because you will have, again, numbers that will surprise you in a positive way. And you have to take those as your proof. Like, this is who I am. This is how I execute. And I don't need to be, the 5, 6, 7, 8 piece athlete, because I work with multiple athletes that are games level that just do lower volume. Like, it could be because of their personal life, could be because of their job, whatever. And turns out if you're fit and you go in and you train hard and you lift heavy things and make sure your skills are all right, then you do pretty well in the sport. So, all right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors. This is the absolute best way to support everything that we do, by heading to misfitathletics.com to get started on phase 1. We have a lovely 27-week plan outlined for everybody. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, and you can get started 2 weeks for free at misfitathletics.com. We have instructions for open athletes, quarterfinal, age group, semifinals, CrossFit games. They're all built in there. And then make sure you head to discord.gg/misfitathletics to join our Discord. The program, you're already listening to the podcast, the Discord, all of this stuff comes together, and you get that same kind of community feel that we need in the sport of CrossFit.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit, you save on your order. Like I said in the intro today, I don't take a lot of vacations. I don't chill a lot. And usually that means, I'm always in the gym taking proper recovery. I'm also taking lots of pre, But there's one supplement I will not forget when I go on vacation, and that's Proper Hydrate. It is the best hydration supplement on the market. It is an everyday wake up, 16 ounces of water. I usually go 2 scoops because I'm a sweaty guy, but if you're a normal human being, you might only go with 1. Definitely check that out. Again, it's going to set you up for the best day possible, because if you're not hydrated, you're not performing at your best. You can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your order.
And lastly, we are brought to you by the best affiliate programming on the planet, Team Misfit. You can head to teammisfit.com. I would just actually skip that for right now. You should go to @TeamMisfitGyms Instagram, head to the link in the bio, and you can download for free Affiliate Games Week. Every year after the games, we take a look at the individual team workouts and we affiliatize them. We are, as you're listening, probably about to start Affiliate Games Week at our gym. If you're not a subscriber, no worries. You just plug that week into your gym's programming whenever it's fun for you all. Give your athletes a chance to kind of see what it's like to be a CrossFit Games athlete. You get a free 14-day trial of Pliability. Our friends at Pliability hooked us up with that. And again, you get the whole week of programming for free. CrossFit Games workouts, affiliatized to be appropriate for your gym. You can get that in the @TeamMisfitGyms Instagram page. All right, back to the interview. Kelly, can you elaborate a little bit on the difference between, you said like you did a good job planning for like the big picture things, but didn't necessarily like like all the little granular things is actually what kind of threw a monkey wrench into a little bit of the transition. Can you elaborate on kind of like what you mean by big picture things versus, like, you gave us a couple examples of smaller things, but like what that's comparison is like?
Yeah. I guess like the big picture thing, like I was mentally prepared. Okay. I've kind of put some restrictions around, this is my training block for the day. Instead of, I have like 1 big training block instead of 2 sessions. And I was sort of, okay, like my identity, it has been shifting slowly. I'm prioritizing my career as a coach. I've got a few projects that are in the works, developing the program that I write. I applied to seminar staff, things like that. And so those were kind of like the big picture, like, okay, things are shifting. But in terms of my daily routine, I was finding myself like, I guess with no specific structure or plan to what my daily rhythm was going to look like outside of, okay, my training hours are condensed, so I can't spend more than this amount of time training. But you can't just like take stuff out, right? As I took training out, or at least training time out, and didn't make a concrete plan for what I was going to fill it with. So like Hunter and I worked a lot on, figuring out what that was going to be. I need to be able to perform mentally a little bit more now than physically. So doing things like a morning meditation and the morning movement. I don't usually do the morning movement stuff because I train so early. I know, I've had a really hard time with that because I coach 6 a.m. classes and I'm already up super early, and my first training session usually starts right after the 6 a.m. class. So that has, and I haven't traditionally been a poor sleeper. I've been a really good sleeper. But I was finding that I wasn't sleeping well for like 2 weeks. I was like, what is happening? I've never had a hard time sleeping. And we were realizing, I shifted my training schedule. I don't train early in the morning anymore. I don't get moving. I don't get my heart rate up. And so it was like, okay, now I have to do this morning movement. I have to prioritize this because I have to get my circadian rhythm reset around, being able to sleep well at night. So things like that, things like shifting my meditation and my breath work to the morning has helped a lot with me getting work done during that morning period. It like gets my mind kind of cleared and sharpened, whereas I used to do that stuff at the end of my day before I sleep. And then working, and then I was finding myself like during my training time, almost like not being disciplined with my training time, I was just like screwing around because I was used to being in the gym for a certain amount of time. And so it would take me like the same amount of time to do 2 pieces as it used to do like 5 pieces. and so it was like, okay, no, this is my training time. Like, get yourself in, be disciplined, like go through your stuff and get out earlier so that you now, like I cut myself off now at like 5 or 6 o'clock of working, right? I need to be like done training by 3:30. I get to work for a little longer. And then 5 or 6 o'clock, I get cut off, and that's family time now. And that's, I've never had that before, which is really strange to me, of like, I go home and I hang out with my puppy and my husband, if he's free, if he's not working. And it's, the concept of free time is really foreign to me. I have not had that in many years. So like making sure that I don't fill that time with doing stuff has been really difficult.
So I've been giving wellness lectures at our affiliates for over 10 years. And the way that I have to give them, just in terms of a progression or an evolution, is kind of wild for that period of time because the world has changed so much in that period of time. People did not have basic, simple, like great information, a decade ago. You could have the type of lecture where you're like, okay, you need to sleep and you need to eat and you need to drink water. And people are like, what are you talking about? Now people have, not only do they have information overload on all of this stuff, but I find that people don't have any space whatsoever in their life for thinking and actually relaxing, where there isn't, a screen in your face, or you aren't potentially in this like tiny little bubble of people. And the most like, the information that seems to move the needle the most for people now is asking them to program in structured space where they can relax and there is no, screen on. And to, if you work and play and socialize all within the same bubble, it can be challenging to have the types of conversations that people have been having for a very long time. So, it's funny that you're working through this and you're talking about it. I think it's a common problem for a lot of people, and it might not be that they're so busy that they can't structure this in, but we're all clicking the dopamine button all day with, Netflix and our phones and all of these things. And to a certain extent, it's great that people have those, sort of escapes and everything. But on the other side, we're just clicking the button, and that's the only way that we're, feeling good about our lives and whatnot. So, what you're talking about is actually something that I try so hard to get people to do. But there is this, I think, period of like, withdrawal, especially if it's more along the lines of, again, the Netflix and the, the iPad and the phone and the computer. We just move around from different size screens all day long. Yeah.
Kelly, you've never really been, not to like what you're saying, like completely agree. You're not like oh, I'm just scrolling through Instagram sort of thing. You're barely on your own Instagram. Yours, like our kind of battle and conversation has been a little bit more about like, it's like you like to fill your time with things that are productive. Like it's like from 0 to 100. It's not like I need to figure out a way to get my screen time down from 4 hours to 2. It's like, no, you just have a preference for taking on like a lot of shit, for lack of a better term. Yeah. And that's certainly not bad, but can you talk a little bit about like how you've kind of, would you say that you've improved and kind of like doing things like saying no, or talking, or maybe talk to the people about how you came to like actually prioritize the things that you're kind of trying to prioritize right now, as opposed to, a year ago when it was like priority number 1 is I need X number of hours to train. Everything else is below that. I don't know how many questions I asked in there, but go ahead.
Oh, 8.
And I was going to get there.
I don't know how many you did either. I'll try and hit them all. I'm trying to hit them all.
You have to take notes with us to answer questions.
I guess
I was.
Ted told me specifically to not do that. So
or you got a list.
Check it.
Yeah, I guess I've never been like a scroller or a TV watcher. I wouldn't even own a TV if it were up to me, but I do tend to be like a doer. I tend to be one of those people that like makes checklists, and I just like constantly feel the need to be checking things off my list. And if I have free time, what else can I check off my list? What else can I, if I have, and somehow, even if I'm like, oh, I have free time this Saturday, somehow I manage to commit myself to filling it with just stuff, like doing stuff. And I end up just constantly busy. And I'm really working on that. I was even working on that through last season, really, because we were talking about things like last season, all my free time, it was fitness focused, but I would still be like, okay, if I have free time, then I can, do some contrast therapy. I'll do more meditation. I can cold plunge, or I can get a massage. I can, whatever, anything. Like I'd be checking things off the list, go see, my PT, or it was all fitness focused, but I was still adding things to my day. And I never gave myself the space to just chill and not have something productive that I was doing. So that's been a consistent challenge regardless. And now that my priorities are shifting, it's still a challenge. I definitely fell into that old trap right after the season. I'm like, okay, prioritizing my career and prioritizing my family. And I have like all this free time. I like didn't really know how to fill it yet. So I just said yes to everything. And then, oh shit, I'm overloaded again. I just in a different way. And so now I am at the point where I'm like, okay, how many things can I say no to? And I'm trying to be really disciplined about that cutoff time in my day. I'm trying to rearrange my schedule, even like my coaching and my schedule, to give myself a day completely out of the gym. I haven't had that in many years, usually in the gym in some form or another, 7 days a week. And so having a single day where I do not step foot in the gym is really has become valuable for me. And yeah, how many other questions did you ask? How many did I answer?
I think the only
3 of 8.
The only other one you did really good. It was basically how you reestablished your priorities.
Yeah, well, I think the conversation that we had a week or two ago, that like a week and a half ago, maybe, like was really helpful. Hunter and I were talking, and he was sort of the initial part of the conversation was he was like, I'm not sure that you've really established your priorities yet. And I was kind of going like, no, I have. Like, I know what my priorities are. And as we talked about it, we worked our way around to like, okay, I have established what my priorities are, but I haven't done the work to make sure that the way that I'm filling my time on a daily basis is in alignment with those priorities. I haven't actually gone through and like made that list, that checklist that I've of course done with my training so many years ago, but I think it's I did that so long ago, and it had become so second nature to me and so dialed in that I didn't have to think about it anymore. And it helped me realize that, okay, no, I actually have to really intentionally decide what is, high enough priority to focus my attention on, that gets to take up my time and my attention, and what things need to come out. And so I had to get really deliberate. I went through, the Google calendaring and the spreadsheets of like, all right, these are my priorities, and what actions am I going to take on a daily basis that are in alignment with these priorities? What actions are on my day daily list now that don't align with these priorities? Like, what can I take out? And so that was a really valuable conversation that led to some very intentional work that I've been doing the last couple weeks.
I think for listeners and athletes as well, you can you turn that around and just say so Kelly is transitioning for, however long, out a little bit less on the fitness side, more on the life side. But a lot of folks listening are like, well, I'm just getting started. I'm going into that. And I think we've all seen athletes who do kind of what you did not unknowingly, something that you did as an athlete. You were like, okay, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do to get there. And then, on the back end, it was like, well, this is my goal, but you don't necessarily have the steps that get you there. And when we see athletes getting into the sport, they have the goal of, I want to go to semifinals. I want to go to the CrossFit Games, but they haven't done the due diligence that you're referring to of well, what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean my day has to look like in order for this to work out? What are the granular details that you kind of alluded to that, aren't necessarily second nature for me now, but if I want to compete at an extremely high level, these need to become habits to the greatest extent possible. And you're just you're doing the same thing that you did, maybe a decade ago as an athlete, thinking okay, here are all the things that I know can contribute to my, the most optimal performance for me. And now you just get to do that, a decade later, but kind of with different goals and different priorities and the different stepping stones to kind of get there.
So it sounds like you've created some of the space, quote unquote. Sorry to cut you off. What are you doing with it? Have you gotten used to the space that you've created yet? Are you starting to feel comfortable with I can fill this and it doesn't need to be another, because maybe your dopamine clicker is the checkbox.
Right. It is. I think I'm getting there. I think I'm not all the way there yet. One of the things that I was realizing recently is that it took me a decade to dial in my daily process around fitness. I changed one thing at a time for, months and years on end.
Smart.
And I just slowly dialed that in. And I was really disciplined about that. I was very intentional. I change one thing at a time and I perfect it. And then I move on to the next thing. And now I'm totally overwhelmed because I'm trying to change 50 things at once. They've upended my life. And I'm like, oh, wait, I realize now why I didn't do this in the beginning. This is why it didn't work, because you can't change 50 habits that you've spent decades optimizing all at one time. This is totally overwhelming. And so I'm just kind of slowly trying to work my way towards the end goal. And I'm focusing on all right, maybe it's not one at a time, but giving myself 2 or 3 priorities to work on. And then, when I get that down and I feel like I've got that, we'll kind of layer in some more. So right now for me, it's the morning movement and a daily meditation is one thing that I check off. Like I said, I cut myself off at that, no later than 6 o'clock. And after that is completely non-productive time. It's hanging out with family, if that was, one of the big light bulbs in that conversation with Hunter was okay, if I've said family is one of my priorities now, what am I doing with my family? What does that mean? I have no space in my schedule to actually prioritize my family. So I'm trying to build that in. The giving myself one day outside of the gym, super important. And then I have, some blocks in my schedule where I'm really focused on work. I've figured out that I have to be at a coffee shop or something to get really focused, productive work in. So I have some blocks in my schedule where I get myself out of the gym, because if I'm in the gym, I'm thinking about, gym stuff, either my training or my members or, things like that I'm focused on. And So I get myself out of the gym and I get myself to a coffee shop that's not home time, it's not family time, it's like working productive time. And having that change of location has really helped me mentally focus. So those are kind of like my current priorities, and I'm working on dialing those things in, and then I'll go from there.
I mean, thinking back to like our childhoods and how our parents lived their lives, just this idea that it's very normal for you to say, well, from whatever 6 to 10 p.m. is unproductive time. Like that to me is a fascinating culture shift, right? Because anyone and everyone, it's not just like, you know, a room full of people working in small business and that has its challenges, but what you just said would not be abnormal, I think, to almost anyone. And it's like such a massive cultural shift. And I also picked up a little bit on like, there's this book that I recommend to quite a few people. It's called Deep Work. I think it's Cal Newport. And it's the same concept in the gym as it is out of the gym. Like, can you go into the gym for 90 minutes or 2 hours and like really get everything out of it that you can? Especially when you're coming off of higher volume, like you can probably stay pretty motivated with lower volume. And then on the work side, like, do you want to sit at your desk for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and maybe get 4 hours of work done, something like that? That's kind of like the standard workday for a lot of people. Or do you like really lock in those moments and get that stuff done? So I'm just like, I don't want to bore the listeners, but I'm like endlessly fascinated with how quickly we are changing everything as a society and like what are the ramifications of that. So just kind of a fascinating topic.
It's also like one small thing that you kind of said, I don't think it was intentional, but it's like, so from 6 to 10 p.m., it's like, it's unproductive time. It's time with family. It's like, no, that's not unproductive. Exactly. That's very productive, right? That's right. That it might not be productive in the sense that I'm checking something off the list or that I'm accomplishing a task or that I'm writing, you know, programming or something like that, but it is still like, because it's in line with the priorities that you're setting, and it's like we have a deliberate end goal here. Like, no, it might not be productive in the you know, labor sense, but it's absolutely productive when it comes to, you know, continuing to build like the relationship with Lance and with the puppy and you know, thinking about the next step of that, you know, the next iteration of that
helps recharge you too.
Yeah,
so you can do the things you want to do the following day.
Well, in society,
actually.
Oh, sorry, the delay gets me every
time.
No,
I was just going to say I've been surprised at how effective it's been already. That it has changed our relationship, and it has changed. You know, my sleep is already getting better. It's like I've been surprised at how quickly I felt the change in, you know, what those habits did to achieving the goal that I was looking for.
I think we like also kind of forget to when you're reestablishing goals or you're trying something new, you're getting into a new routine and new habits, everything seems like a nuisance and an inconvenience at the time. And then you start to pick up on the little things that like, oh, I can see how this is benefiting me. And again, to take it back to, let's say, a decade ago, or for anybody getting into the sport, it's like, yeah, the first time you commit to the first phase one you ever do, you're going to get your fucking ass beat in the first week or two. Jeez, but then you slowly, I had a few other things in there.
I was wondering where you were going.
It's a kid's show.
He really wanted to try to say what he was going to say without saying it.
I picked up what you see something was coming on that with that facial expression.
Anyway, then you start to then you start to like add in the little thing. It's like, oh, if I do this warm-up protocol before I squat, then things go better. If I do this post-workout, you know, recovery thing that you know, got to the point where it was like second nature, it's like, oh, this helps me. So you start to, as you kind of implement a new routine, a new habit, whatever, it's like at first it's a huge pain in the ass, and then it becomes like, I like that part. I like that part. I see what this thing is doing to me over here. Like, man, I'm actually like sleeping a little bit better because maybe I'm down regulating with my dog and my husband and my family at night. And it's like, I'm more relaxed. So it's important to not, to try to keep paying attention to those things in the same way that athletes so maniacally pay attention to how certain recovery techniques and stretches and whatever it is does for their performance. You just gotta have the same kind of mentality with the other stuff.
Well, and then 10 years ago, like, am I going to convince anyone to sit in a sauna, get in a cold tub, meditate, walk for an hour a day? Like, I wouldn't have been able to do that because people did have a little bit more space in their lives for their brain to work through. Like, you're supposed to have time to work through, like, your brain's running in the background, conversations that you had during the day, issues that you have, you're trying to be creative. Your brain needs space for those things to happen. And we've gone so far from when you wake up to when you go to bed, you either need to be doing something or consuming something. Mm-hmm. Those are your only choices. Now I can convince all kinds of people to do those things because some part of us is asking to get that part of our lives back. But like, when you're addicted to something, and again, it can be like some of the people that I work with, they're workaholics, and it's not, the Netflix or whatever. It's, again, that like, got to be productive. I'm hustling or grinding or whatever the cool thing is to say now. So,
I was going to say something cool, but I had to censor myself. No, I'm not allowed to. I yelled at it before.
I want to switch gears a little bit. Prior to the podcast, I was really thinking about what happens when someone has you might have your 20,000 hours. At some point, I already know that you're passionate about this at the affiliate level, so we can go there first and then maybe the competitive community, but you are very much a vessel for all of this information that you've talked about and these habits that you've built and, sort of what you've done. Do you think about that any differently now, or is it just a continuation of it because you've been coaching for a while?
Ooh. I think that this process for me has, it's just given me some more tools and more ways to empathize with my members and things that they're going through. Things that I haven't personally experienced in a long time, are like coming back up. It's forcing me to like go through some of these learning processes again that I haven't had to do just because I've been so dialed in for so long. And so I think when you're talking to members and you're coaching them, there's kind of a fine line to walk between living the lifestyle that you preach and being sort of like a guiding light for them and, something to shoot for. But also being able to empathize with where they're at and not setting yourself so, being so unrelatable that they're like, yeah, I can't even listen to what you're saying because you don't know what my life is like, and so like, there's kind of that fine line to walk between making sure that you're setting the good example for them to follow, but also being able to speak from a place of empathy where you really do understand some of the things that they're going through and where they might be at in their life. And I think that this process for me has been a good reminder of some of those things, of some of the challenges that my members experience on a daily basis. And it's sort of like a new ways to empathize with them and, a different place to speak from, I guess. So that's been a cool part of it.
What would you say is the biggest thing you're trying to work on as a affiliate coach? And like, you guys don't own Crash, just one of the coaches, a head coach. Yes. Sorry. Getting the gyms. Yep. Gym's all screwed up here, but
Crash,
yes. Crash, up, left, right, A, whatever it is. So what would you say is the biggest thing you're trying to work on, career wise? I heard you say seminar staff, but that's obviously a weekend gig, not a everyday kind of gig, as far as I know.
Right.
So what does that look like for you right now?
Right now, we're working on a program that I write for the local fire department. I run it at the gym as well. They talked a little bit about it in the little CrossFit doc that they did, but I write a program that's sort of more foundational program, a lot of corrective exercise, injury prevention. There's a recovery piece to it to help people manage their stress levels and use their movement practice to recover and then be ready to perform again. And so it's injury prevention has been something that I've been really passionate about. And we've been finding, talking to a lot of our first responders in the area that, they have very high rates of metabolic disease, cancers, suicides are going up, things like that. And so helping them manage their stress levels, but also they have a job where they have to physically and mentally perform at a high level. And then they have to, down-regulate themselves. And so basically they're athletes and they need to learn how to train and live like an athlete and how to perform and then recover. And balance that set of priorities. If you get hurt on the job, you have to know how to manage an injury. You have to know how to prevent injuries, when something's getting, imbalanced or flared up. And so we are writing a program to help give them those tools. And so we've been slowly expanding that program. Potentially, we're currently writing a program to run the fitness training side of a fire academy. To help them make it through academy, hopefully injury-free and fitter than they were when they started the academy, but then also set them up with some foundational habits and tools for managing their recovery and their stress levels and injury prevention and things like that. So we're partnering. I write the fitness side of things, and then I partner with the PT side. CrossFit Up is owned by DeWitt Physical Therapy. And so we partnered with Ryan, who's the head physical therapist there. And, he's doing things like pre-academy, like injury risk assessments and state of readiness testing and things like that. So it's super cool, super fascinating on my end, but that's where my career growth is going.
That's cool.
How much hands-on time do you get in these scenarios versus, like, obviously one of our challenges here is we're sending a program out to a bunch of people and may never cross paths with them in person. So how much in person do you get, and how do you sort of balance that?
Well, for the last 2 years, year and a half, maybe, we've partnered with our local fire department. So the Santa Cruz Fire Department uses the program that we've been writing as their in-house training program. And then we have a thing with them where they get to drop in to CrossFit Up when they're not on shift and they could take classes. And so, I guess it's a little bit of a blended program right now, where that's given me a lot of experience and a lot of hands-on work to help inform where we're going now, where it will be a remotely delivered program. And to be honest, I've learned a lot from you guys because you guys do it so well, and all of the content creation that you do around delivering a remote program that helps create so much buy-in and helps keep you connected with the members that are following your program that you can't see. I've learned a lot of really valuable things from the way that you guys do things that I think we're going to take into delivering this program as well.
So if you were to maybe choose a couple of checkpoints in your CrossFit career, and you could go back in time and give yourself small pieces of advice. I'm just thinking about, you have a lot of what's coming out of this for me is you developing unique perspectives at different points in your life and your career and figuring out how to use them. We have people, like Hunter said, listening to this podcast that are just starting phase 1 for the first time. We have people who are, in the teens program and the master's program, kind of all over the place. So if you, again, were able to just choose a couple of checkpoints and give yourself advice, can you think of anything that you would have wanted to know or figured out sooner?
Yeah. I think I guess one of the early checkpoints that I would have wanted to figure out sooner is to have gotten myself a coach. That has been probably the single most valuable change that I made. And, you know, like I'm a really dedicated person. I'm very disciplined. I'm very process and, you know, achievement oriented. So I thought that I would be okay managing myself for a long time. I wrote programming for myself for a year, and I think I was continuing to be more successful each year. So I thought that was going okay. But I definitely hit a point where I'm like, okay, I think I do need a coach now. And the amount of progress that I made in that period of time, it just like went at light speed, you know? And so I was like, it was one of those moments where I was like, okay, I should have done this 7 years ago. You know? If I'd had a coach in the beginning, maybe it wouldn't have taken me, you know, 13 years to get to the place I am. Maybe I could have done that a lot faster, with a lot less stress, because I think
that's the key, right?
Managing
how much are you how much extra are you carrying with yourself? It's not that you're not capable of it, but you don't get to,
right,
you know, chop yourself into 5 different people who have the energy, you know, to deal with 5 different things. That's, you know, everyone says it, quote unquote, it takes a village, and you go to the CrossFit Games and you see how many people are in each athlete's corner, you know, that have been successful for a period of time. And it's not that the athlete can't go in and do these things individually in a vacuum. But it's just not the way that things work. You need to be able to focus on what you can like really move the needle on, and hopefully have someone that you trust, that can get you there. You know, I'm obviously biased in this situation. This is what I do for a living. But I think the financial ramifications, I think, have the magnifying glass on them too much. I think the buy-in from the coach and the athlete is way bigger, way larger, takes more, like, and should be more of a determining factor for an athlete. Like, if you think that you can just pay a few $100s a month and then everyone's going to snap their fingers and you're going to be, you know, making the progress that you made, Kelly, no. You bought in at a very high level. Your coach bought in at a very high level. So it's, again, hard for us to have these conversations because it can sound sort of salesy, but it makes all the difference in the world if people are like truly willing to buy in. And the money is, I think, a pretty small factor, just by comparison.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, maybe this wasn't as hard of a thing for me because once I made the decision to get a coach, you know, I've been coached in sports forever, and at a high level. And so having a coach was not like a really new thing for me. So making the transition to being a coached athlete and being coachable was not really anything new. Being able to put my trust in somebody else and just hand it off to Hunter, you know, and say, all right, you got all of these things now. I don't have to worry about it. And I'm just going to trust you completely to take care of those things. That wasn't a hard thing for me, but I can see how, for somebody else who maybe doesn't have that background, who isn't used to, putting their trust in somebody else and just letting go of all of the things that you now don't have control over, that might be a harder transition.
We're all looking for that magic, right? At least at some point in our life, we're like, there is a pill I can take, or a programmer I can follow, or a human that I can Venmo that will magically turn me into a monster.
Well, and like to think about that from the opposite perspective. So you got a coach in your CrossFit career relatively late. So if you had done that, if that was like the first thing you had done and you saw a bunch of progress, and then like, would that have been the standard at that point? Like if you know, if we had worked together, if you made the equivalent amount of progress, 5-6 years ago, and then in year 7 or 8, like the progress slowed, is that like, you know, hindsight's really 2020, because you get to look back now and say like, oh, I worked, you know, what I was doing was going pretty well, like I had it mostly figured out, but then I got a coach and it just freed me up to be an athlete, and I progressed a lot faster. So like, people should take that with a grain of salt. You know, it's like, again, thinking about someone who's been in sports and athletics and competitive CrossFit for as long as you have, it's like, yeah, well, I have a lot of data to compare against when it comes to not having a coach versus having a coach versus, you know, super young, maybe fire breather, maybe not so mature Kelly, versus like, you know, a little bit more experienced, having gone through like just year after year of the same stuff. And it's like, okay, I see, like, I see the benefit now.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I mean, yes, getting a coach was, for me, you know, late in my career, I made a lot of progress in a very short period of time. But that being said, if I had gotten a coach early on in my career, made a lot of progress, and then maybe the progress slowed down, I don't think that you know, progress isn't always linear. That's just how sports go. That's how being an athlete goes. And, you know, things have, as evidenced by my last season, you know,
different kind of progress.
You know, right. Different. I mean, totally different learning points, totally different growth, for me as an athlete and as a person. But like, I wouldn't like take that and start to question whether or not I'm still doing the right things. It's just, you know, like I still learned a lot. I still grew. You know, we dealt with some different challenges that we have to work around. Like, that's just part of the process. It just doesn't always go in a linear direction the way you would love it to. But I don't think that's something that tells you, oh, it's not working anymore, now I have to change everything. You know?
Can you think of any other checkpoints where you would go back in time and give yourself advice?
Yes. And I think I've probably learned this lesson. The other big one, I've had to learn this lesson several times over my career. It's been a hard one to stick, but, oh gosh, hi, are they? Sorry. I think the hardest lesson for me to learn, because I'm so checkbox oriented, is I can get really, really obsessive, very militant about my process and my checklist and my things that I have to do, to the point where it becomes a stressor rather than something that's helping me. And it takes me into a much more negative space than is good for me. I get stressed out if I don't get things checked off the list. I get, you know, it is. And so I think for me, reminding myself that I do this for fun and because I love it. And if I'm not enjoying it, then that's a flashing red light for me that I need to make that shift back. I need to pull something back somewhere. I've gone too far over the edge. And I definitely have had several moments in my athletic career, you know, even beyond CrossFit, where I've hit a point like that. It's taken, I think it takes me less time every time I have to learn it to realize where I'm at. I don't get quite as deep into the negative headspace before I realize, oh, wait, I need to pull back. But I think that's probably, if I look back on my career, the years where I really prioritized and focused on enjoying the process of what I was doing and making sure that I was having fun with my training and loving what I was doing, rather than getting so obsessive to the point where it stressed me out. Those were the years that I was most successful.
I feel like that's measuring essentially the wrong the wrong thing. It's getting too obsessed with the outcome of what's happening and things you can't control versus like,
yes,
I like going to the gym and I generally like pushing myself to this position where, you know, I don't know if I can do another rep or another round. Like that is what drew me into this sport, or the challenge of always having something else in front of you that you haven't mastered yet. And there's, you know, I figured out how to do a handstand, and it's a handstand push-up and a strict handstand push-up. And then eventually it's a press the handstand, pirouette, 360 on a box, 720 backflip. But it's one of those things where you like, there's a progression of things, and that's exciting because I mean, that's essentially what drew me into CrossFit is there's so many things to try to be good at that it's a never ending list of things you can kind of work on. And I think that sort of describes you in a way as well, that you love the fact that there's always a challenge when you go into the gym. And then when you start measuring things that are, you know, things are outside of your control, like how you place on a leaderboard versus someone else, or the fact that you know, looked objectively at your time and it was 30 seconds slower than somebody else's, but, you know, maybe you were working on X and they were working on Y. It's just tough to get, you know, not lost in the weeds when that happens, because at, you know, the end of the day, you do get measured in the sport of CrossFit against your competitors, but that's a, you know, a blip on the radar as opposed to like the everyday grind of like what makes it enjoyable and makes it something that you want to do day by day.
Right.
I wrote something that got posted to Instagram. It will, when this airs, will have been a week ago, to just sort of as a bit of a rallying cry for phase one. And for years, the narrative of, is this athlete in love with the process, or do they just care about the outcome, was a let's figure out whether you are that athlete or not. And I've come around to, there's no way they would be here if they weren't. Like athletes, every single person listening to this, I can't imagine someone's listening to this podcast and they don't either coach, observe, or participate in competitive CrossFit. Like, thank you for listening. I'm not sure exactly what you're doing here. But so much of, again, this conversation of identity can get brought into the competitions are essentially muddying the waters. Like the athlete is in love with the process. They do enjoy doing that. But at a certain point, you know, who are your sponsors and what place did you come in? And all of these things that are fleeting and quick are starting to creep their way in and define who you are. And that's when you forget. And it's like, no. Let's go back to it again. And I think that's why we all love like the cheesiest, most obvious quotes that we see on Instagram. We like, with the way life is now, we need those reminders. Hey, you should try to have fun. Oh yeah. Holy shit. What? Thanks. That's excellent advice. So it's really important to have other people hear that you are such a process-oriented person, and you still run into those same things. And again, I think with you, it probably does come a little bit back to this, like how many, you were doing the jobs of like a dozen people. Like you were really just siloing yourself as I'm this and I'm this and I'm this and I'm this, and you're just switching hats all of the time. And
right.
And at a certain point, that's just not manageable, right? So then you do have to literally be like, no, I like this. I enjoy doing this. I'm just maybe like overdoing it on the extracurriculars, or need a coach, or need, you know, help with programming, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I've realized, having put my 10,000 hours in, maybe 20,000, but is that my body will hold out almost as long as I need it to. You know, I'm a very good compensator when I have to be, and I'm so used to just working through things, working through my process, and not, I guess, you know, it's kind of autopilot. Like there's no decisions to be made. I just work through my process. And I do the things that are on my program and check. And my body will just do that, you know? And, you know, people will come and ask me how I'm doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm totally fine. You know, ready to go. And then I'll get in front of like my barbell to start a snatch session and like start crying. And Lance
there.
will get in my face and be like, you are done. You are done. You
gym?
have pushed it too far. Yeah. And it's like my nervous system breaks down before my body does. Like I haven't even realized that I've dug myself a hole until I get to that point where I'm like standing in front of my barbell, haven't even lifted it yet, and just like bursting into tears because I've like taken myself too far into that like stressed out space. And I have to like really come back and be like, you're supposed to enjoy this. You know, this is supposed to be fun. And whatever I've done, however I've overloaded myself, like we've got to pull back now because it's not where we're at.
Yeah, your body is trying to tell you that you have infinite resources, and time and energy, those are finite resources. And if we push it too far, the writing's usually on the wall eventually. You know, I'm crying in my office, you're crying, looking at the snatch bar. It's all the same. It's all the same.
Same.
That's why the door's closed. Got it.
Yep.
Right.
That's why the door's locked.
Different.
You just put your ear up to the door. You hear me sobbing. All right. So we do final thoughts. We always let the guest go last. I'm looking at these guys right now. I'm wondering whether I should go first.
No, I'll go first.
All right.
I mean, I think it's kind of, it's going to sound weird, but like, maybe not weird, but very mature of you that you're able to switch gears like this and potentially consider, you know, what this has meant to your family and to Lance and to Harley. Like you're now able to like take yourself out of, I'm going to be in the gym all day, every single day. And that's okay. And that's what like adults do. I think for a lot of athletes, they may extend themselves beyond what is fun for them just because it's like who I am and what I do. And I think now hearing your story would hopefully give other athletes the opportunity to realize that like, hey, it's okay to switch gears for a year or two. This isn't say that Kelly will never be back in the competitive space and aspire to be a CrossFit Games like champion, whether that's in the individual or masters or on a team or whatever your goals are moving forward. But I think it's really cool of you to, you know, put that out into the world and say, hey, I can switch gears for a while because this isn't the only thing that I am. And I think you'll find more fulfillment and more enjoyment in the competitive space if you do take a few years away from the highly competitive side to, you know, potentially address things that have been sitting in the back of your mind for years and years. And I think it'd be beneficial for a lot of other athletes who may be struggling with that same concept of like, this is who I am, this is my identity, I can't do anything else, to try and switch it up for a little while. Even if it's not even a full year, maybe if it's even just a phase or a season and you're just, I'm going to consider doing something else to see how it, you know, can work for me and make me realize how, like, why I started to do this stuff in the first place. So, you know, my final thoughts are more like a, you know, nice work, Kelly. I'm sort of proud of you for being able to do that because I think that's a cool thing for an athlete to be able to go and say, because I think it's a scary thing for a lot of athletes to do is say, I'm going to switch gears and try something else.
Yeah, I think a big takeaway here is that one, like, we're not establishing like this black and white thing. It's not like competitive Kelly was in the past. Now I'm family Kelly. It's like, no, like things are just moving. Like you said, like progress isn't linear and neither is kind of life, for lack of a better term. And I think that being able to kind of sit down and occasionally, for anybody listening, whether it's competitive CrossFit, you're doing something like what Kelly's doing or somewhere in the middle, it's to like sit down, have an idea of what, like, be honest with yourself as to like what are your actual priorities. Is it that I want to win the CrossFit Games but I'm not willing to do any sort of exercise to get there, or is it that I want to shift my priorities to my family a little bit and I'm having trouble like transitioning out of the competitive side? Like, what do I do with myself? And I think the thing that like you and Lance like seem to have really took on just based on the messages that you and I have is that like, hey, like we are talking, like what are the priorities? Like what are the things that we want to get like to do? What are the things that have to be done to get there? And what are the sacrifices that I need to make and we need to make on a day-to-day basis to feed, you know, to put water in the right bucket, so to speak. So I think it's awesome that like you guys are going full steam ahead on that. I'm glad that you're doing the meditating and your morning movement. So I'm excited. Yes, very good. I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple months. And like Drew said, like we've kind of talked about it. I think the conversations have been geared a little bit more towards like the priorities and the goals and those sorts of things. But like it's kind of been like underneath. But it's like he's right. You're really fit. You've trained. You've exercised for a really long time, and like at some point in the future, you're like, we're going to flip that switch and go back in the other direction. It's like, like phase one, it'll suck for the first week or two, but like, you'll be surprised at how quickly you get your legs back under you just as somebody who is, one, still going to exercise, and two, just has such a high baseline of fitness and competitive like candor.
One of the athletes went back to the CrossFit Games after a while of not going. The other one qualified for the first time ever. So I'm just throwing some information out there that more is not better. And I think that might actually be potentially a good final thoughts. But I like to talk, so I'm going to keep going. So what I'm really getting from this is a really good reminder that life serves up some amazing potential for perspective shifts or evolution throughout life. And you kind of gotta step back a little bit and pay attention to be able to do that. I think it's really cool that you're not only developing new perspectives, but you're very open and honest about not feeling like you've got it completely figured out yet. Like you're mid process. I think a lot of people need to go through something and then ignore it and then have it swim around in the back of their head a little bit to be able to come back to it. So it sounds like you're very open to those things. And like the biggest light bulb moment for me was you talking about how living a lifestyle closer to what your members lives, like it gives you empathy towards what their situation is and what they're trying to, sort of do. And that's fascinating, right? You would think that more time with all of your knowledge, you would just snap into like, here's this thing and here's that thing. But because you are willing to, again, accept the things that are presented to you, you noticed that you could really like empathize with them and get on the same level for certain things. So just really cool that you're able to see those things coming at you in life. And just a reminder to all of us in the room and everyone listening that like life does give you really good opportunities to advance as a human, and sometimes in the moment they feel real shitty. Sometimes the ones that feel really great you don't learn all that much from. So I think be open to new perspectives is final thoughts for me.
Well, okay. Well, you guys said everything, so I guess for me the final thoughts is just I don't know. I think that reminding myself to enjoy the process and like enjoy my life is a big guiding post right now. And I'm not saying this. Sorry, this isn't like I'm never gonna prioritize being an athlete again. I do think, like you said, Drew, like I have hope that I still intend to compete, and I have hope that I'll come back maybe an even better athlete from rebalancing myself as a human and, going through the work to set my priorities and making sure that my daily actions are aligned with those priorities. And I think that it'll make me a better coach. It'll make me a better athlete. And for anybody else that's kind of going through this process in either direction, whether you're trying to get, dial in being an athlete, I think that super valuable making sure that your daily actions align with your priorities, but also that you have the space to enjoy what you're doing, that you have some downtime, that you have some recovery time that maybe isn't, filling every second of your day with doing something.
Very true. All right. Thanks for joining us. As always, a lot of really cool insight. I think really helpful for athletes, again, going in either direction. These lessons, it's cool that you're taking I can't add all of it at once. on the way up, and then I can't completely change everything in my life in a single day. So you get a lot of perspective no matter what your current goals are. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks, Cal.
Cool. Thanks, guys.